Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori in for STWU. It's Friday, August the 13th. This is Africa 54.
The Nigeria doctors' strike disrupts the country's healthcare system amid a new COVID-19 surge. A village in Malawi sets an example for malaria eradication. And a closer look at the artist who's keeping Zimbabwean music and dance culture alive and well.
Doctors in Nigeria are striking over unpaid salaries and poor benefits, but the walkout by some 40% of the country's medical workforce comes amid a fresh wave of coronavirus infections severely straining Nigeria's healthcare system. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Announced Soraya Ali is at the National Hospital in Abuja for a post-surgery visit, the second time since the National Association of Resident Doctors, or NARD, began their strike on July 2nd. The 62-year-old underwent surgery last month to address bleeding in his colon. His wait for post-surgery results was long.
And I did a laboratory test, the results were out, but because I was not a doctor, I have to wait for a whole week until yesterday when I got there. And I have to wait for a long time.
NARD, which represents about 40% of Nigeria's medical workforce, is protesting unpaid salaries and what it says are poor working conditions and benefits. The doctors' union is also accusing Nigeria's health authorities of failing to honor promises made earlier this year to meet their demands. Those promises led the doctors' group to call off its strike in April after a 10-day walkout. Now, striking doctors say their patience is at an end.
Enough is enough. While we understand the peculiarity of the time we are in, we also know that the same government is attending to other issues. So we are calling the attention to the health sector. Let us prioritize the health sector.
The latest strike is raising concerns as Nigeria confronts a third wave of the coronavirus pandemic triggered by the deadly Delta variant. The country reported over 700 new cases of the coronavirus on Wednesday, the highest daily rate in many months, signaling a third wave is in full swing. Health Board Director Ndayo Iwat says the medical salary issue is complicated.
Like minimum wage, because that's how the federal government is looking at it. Minimum wage that, the minimum wage for the federation is so and so. So states should be able to take that up and pay accordingly, but so that they don't have the capacity to do. So here you have it.
NARD doctors say they will remain on strike until all their demands are met. This week, the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, MDCAN, also threatened to go on strike by Monday. Bad news for patients like Soraya Ali and Nigeria's already stretched public health system. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
On to East Africa now. Kenya's oxygen production firm Hewatele is doubling production this year to keep up with surging demand from hospitals that are treating critically ill COVID-19 patients. Soraya Ali has the details.
Kenya's oxygen production firm Hewatele says it's doubling production this year to keep up with surging demand from hospitals treating COVID-19 patients. Demand for the commodity has more than doubled. It's gone from around 450 tons before the pandemic to 970 tons, according to the Ministry of Health. And that's causing a steep shortage due to lack of installed capacity. Bernard Oleo is the company's founder.
The capacity between all the companies that are in this country, if we had 2,000 such patients, we do not have enough capacity to take care of them. A lot of people would actually just die waiting for care. So that's how bad a gap we have in terms of oxygen production and distribution capacity.
Kenya is confronting a severe fourth wave of COVID-19 infections, which is putting pressure on health facilities. Oleo says Hewatele plans to invest $3.5 million to double production to 2.2 tons a day by year end. The firm currently produces oxygen by the chemical method. That uses naturally occurring salt to separate nitrogen from the air, which he says has its limitations. To resolve that issue, Hewatele will invest another $15 million next year to build an air separation unit to produce liquid oxygen. He said that would lead to a 10-fold output increase to 22 tons per day. The expansion is being financed by a combination of debt and equity from international financiers. But the process will not be easy, he says, since the pandemic has driven up demand for oxygen and for components used by oxygen plants.
Well, that's Soraya Ali of Reuters who fired that report. To the south now, Malawi had nearly 7 million malaria cases last year. That's more than 1/3 of the population. 2,500 lost their lives to the mosquito-borne disease. However, one village is now a model for how to eradicate malaria, and in June was honored as the first ever to have zero malaria cases for a whole year. Lameck Masina reports from Machinga district in southern Malawi.
Margaret Kachere, a resident of Hewatele village in Machinga district, recounts a day in 2009 when her family of 5 children was about to lose their second-born child to malaria.
That day, her body was too hot, and she would often faint. I took her to a traditional healer, but it did not help. It was terrible that one couldn't sleep. This forced me to take her to the hospital the following day, where she got help after diagnosed with malaria.
Kachere's family is among thousands of people in Hewatele village who have long been affected by malaria, largely because of beliefs and misconceptions against the use of mosquito nets, a preventive measure.
We believed that if one sleeps under a mosquito net, they would suffer from loss of libido, and also that if one sleeps under the net, would die soon because the net symbolizes a coffin. So we were afraid to sleep under the mosquito net.
But the community-driven anti-malaria campaign, which started in 2016, has changed that perception. Now, Hewatele, a home to over 12,000 people, has become a model village in Malawi for combating malaria. In June this year, Malawi's president honored the village's chief for reducing malaria infection and for recording 0 cases since 2017.
What this village has done has given me hope that if everyone follows what they do, the campaign to make Malawi free from malaria is possible.
Malaria is the #1 killer in Malawi, accounting to 36% of all hospital outpatients and 15% of hospital admissions. Last year alone, the disease killed 2,500 people in Malawi, more than any other disease, including COVID-19. The Villages Award is owed to a group of community volunteers who teach the villagers about malaria prevention measures. Their activities include drama, community health talks, and door-to-door campaigns. This has forced people from surrounding villages learn about the measures, and also the village chief augmented the campaign by formulating laws that require villagers to use mosquito nets.
I have introduced the bylaws to prevent people from abusing mosquito nets. Some people would sell the free mosquito nets to fishermen. So anyone disobeying the bylaws would pay a fine of $6. I use the money to buy a mosquito net, and I give it to those who don't have.
Now, Hewatele community volunteers say that funds permitting, they look to take the anti-malaria campaign to nearby villages or beyond. Lameck Masina for VOA News, Machinga District, Malawi.
U.S. President Joe Biden is sending his special envoy for the Horn of Africa to Ethiopia amid international alarm at the escalation of a war that has killed thousands and created a humanitarian crisis in one of the world's poorest regions. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, while announcing the trip by envoy Jeffrey Feltman, urged Ethiopia's government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front to come to the negotiating table after 9 months of conflict. Zambian election officials on Friday are counting the vote from Thursday's presidential election. The too close to call race between top contenders President Edgar Lungu and main rival Hakainde Hichilema was held amidst restrictions on internet access and violence in 3 regions. The chief officer of Zambia's Electoral Commission says the commission is receiving results from all 156 constituencies. Full results are expected within 72 hours after polls closed on Thursday. The government is declining to comment on the alleged disruptions to the internet, which users say affected several social media sites. Facebook says it was among the sites impacted. Hichilema took to Twitter to accuse the ruling party of ordering a social media shutdown. Well, the African Union Poll Observer mission that monitored Zambia's elections says the process was peaceful. The observers also say representatives of political parties at the polling stations that they visited had no problems and were pleased with how the elections were administered. Former Sierra Leonean President Ernest Bai Koroma, who led the African Union Poll Observers, says he was pleased with how Zambians conducted themselves during the voting. VOA's Peter Clote sat down with Koroma and began by asking him about his observations of the election process.
Personally, I'm impressed with what I have seen thus far. Even at 6 a.m., you already have long queues lined up. It shows a lot of enthusiasm and excitement on the part of the Zambians to exercise their civic responsibility. It's very impressive. It shows that the kind of voter apathy that is experienced in other parts of the world is not in Zambia, and the Zambians are alive and conscious to their responsibilities as citizens in a democratic country.
Mr. President, you said you raised concerns with the stakeholders when you met them. What was the key message from the African Union to them?
Well, it was that we're here to support Zambia. We have a responsibility as Africans to develop democracy, to enhance good governance, to ensure that we achieve the Africa that we want, for which we have already set an agenda. And we have to participate as individuals, as institutions within the country, and as a country, that if we don't be democratic, if we don't allow broad participation and inclusiveness of our citizenry, we will undermine the process. We will not be able to take Zambia where we want it to be.
Mr. President, you have been in this position before. You've run elections. You've won elections in Sierra Leone. You've been an observer. You've led the African Union mission in several African countries observing these elections. With your experience as a former president yourself, what was your message to these candidates that you met and the need for them to ensure the country's peace is maintained irrespective of who wins the elections, particularly the presidential?
Well, I have been engaging, and I must say that in addition to being an observer, the African mission has given me an added responsibility to engage beyond today in the capacity of kind of a preventive diplomacy to ensure that it's not just a question of the outcome of an election or acceptance or rejection. It's a question of ensuring that we all work together. We all work together in the interest of the country. We all accept the elections in good faith. If the elections are rejected, you go through the constitutional means. We will always have challenges in the process. I have been there myself. I have run elections. I lost a presidential elections in 2002. I won in 2007 and 2012. My party lost in 2018. We had concerns, legitimate concerns. But these were concerns that were channeled through the legal system, and that's it. But what is important is for us to conduct ourselves such that we ensure there is peace within our political parties and in the country. It is for the political leaders to admonish their supporters, to let them know that it is not a matter of life and death.
Well, that was Peter Clotes speaking with former Sierra Leonean President and Zambian poll observer Ernest Bai Koroma. Now, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, keeping ancient Zimbabwean music and dance culture alive. Stay with us. Thousands of hectares of restored mangroves are changing the lives of local fishing communities in Senegal, by helping them tackle and adapt to the climate change. Senegal is among the worst affected countries on the continent. Persistent droughts linked to climate change saw nearly 40% of its mangrove area lost since the 1970s. The mangroves not only cultivate wildlife and sea life like shellfish, but also act as a protective barrier between the land and the sea. Mangroves are essential for preventing soil erosion, holding back rising sea levels, and promoting marine ecosystems. Funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the Senegalese government, more than 50,000 families in the region benefit from mangrove restoration.
It's really important to reforest reforest areas around Senegal with mangroves, because mangroves really provide the last bastion of resilience in countries such as Senegal. Deforestation, road construction, and other areas have led to the denudation of these kind of forested areas that have essentially meant that incomes have been lost by vulnerable communities.
Well, the project aims to reforest more than 1,000 hectares of mangroves in Senegal in the next few years. The extreme hot weather in the Mediterranean region is continuing to trigger wildfires, with dozens of people killed in Algeria, Greece, Italy, and Turkey in recent days. Henry Ridgewell has more from London.
At night, the hills of southeast Sicily are lit up in flames. A frightening spectacle for the residents of these ancient mountain villages. The weather system, nicknamed Lucifer, has unleashed record high temperatures and triggered huge wildfires across the Mediterranean. A weather station in southeast Sicily registered what could be Europe's highest ever recorded temperature Wednesday, 48.8 degrees Celsius. Forests and fields, sun-baked to tinder, take little to ignite. A discarded cigarette, even a shard of glass magnifying the sun's rays.
We are living through some really sad moments because our land has suffered a very serious loss, and it will take a long time before it returns to its former glory.
On the Greek island of Evia, the air is filled with acrid smoke, punctured by the low-flying sorties of water-dropping aircraft. Fire crews have travelled from across Europe to help, and as far away as Russia and Egypt. But for many residents, it's too late.
Today we have a lot of water-dropping aircraft. They should have been here from day one. The damage is now too big, unfortunately.
The heat has also triggered huge fires in Algeria, killing at least 65 people. Aid agencies say over 600 families have been made homeless.
This is just the beginning of the heat and humidity deaths which we're going to see, which we can attribute directly to human-caused climate change. Preparedness, what can we really do? When we're up to this level of 45 degrees and over, really the only way to get through it, unfortunately, is indoor cooling. And most people do not have that.
As well as the immediate danger to life, the extreme weather disrupts livelihoods and economies.
When it's too hot to be outside, we are not going to have people tilling the fields. We are not going to have people harvesting the crops and sending it to be processed for our supermarket shelves. Construction cannot happen. What do we do about repairs for infrastructure which require people being outdoors because it's simply too hot to be out there?
The heat wave is now moving west towards Spain. Social workers are checking in on the most vulnerable residents. Meanwhile, in Turkey, heavy rains have caused catastrophic flooding in recent days, echoing scenes from Germany and Belgium last month. Scientists say it shows the urgency of fighting climate change. But in the short term, they warn extreme weather is increasingly common, and humanity must adapt as best it can. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Today's entertainment highlights one artist keeping ancient Zimbabwean music and dance culture alive and well. Ethnomusicologist Heather Maxwell, host of VOA's Music Time in Africa radio program, speaks with him about Zimfest USA, the Harare music scene, and his hope to restore the important role of women in traditional Zimbabwean music.
Hello, everyone. Joining me from Harare, Zimbabwe, is traditional musician, percussionist, composer, educator, Othniel Mongoma Moyo. Hi, Mongoma. How are you doing?
Hi, Heather. How are you?
Great. You performed at Zimfest 2021 USA. How was it?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for us. Also being on the lineup with great people that we look upon. Look up to like Sekiwa, like Frederick Jugru, like also discovering some bands in America, the marimba bands, which play so much good music, and also the people from here. But we're so privileged and honored also to represent the music of our forefathers and be given the platform.
Mongoma and I already met in January 2018 in Harare at his home. I was there doing an interview for Music Time in Africa on Voice of America. And Mongoma, you played the most beautiful traditional percussion, the mbira, you sang. So I want to take you all back in time, pre-COVID, just to catch that vibe. Mongoma, are you still the guardian of ancient Zimbabwean music and dance culture?
Yeah, thank you.
Any modifications to that self-designation, especially since COVID-19? I think of music and health, physical health, mental health.
I can say mostly the healing part. When music was made for healing, and there are some songs that were made for healings, and there are some songs with ways, some songs that carry messages with ways of how to go through situations like the one that you are experiencing now, the situation of COVID.
If you were to put a temperature on live music right now in Harare, hot, warm, or cold, how would you describe it?
I can rate it to very cold. So we were surviving from live performances, and now there are these restrictions. Sometimes it's 50 people, or sometimes, most of the times, it's no concerts. Some of the musicians are changing careers because there isn't much to gain from that.
Well, what plans do you have once things are safe?
I think once it becomes safe, I'll be working more with the youth and also with the women. A place which was so significant, which over the years was lost as much more males were dominating the scene. Women had a very powerful space.
Well, it has been such a pleasure to see you again. Thanks, Mongoma.
Thank you, Music Time in Africa. Yeah, thank you, Voice of America. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, viewers. Bye.
See y'all next time.
Thank you. Good stuff there. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.